Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. And afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Right on, Debbie. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
I am doing fine. Thank you so much.
And you look fine.
Thank you.
We're going to talk now about the book writing process, and I want to
Okay.
hear it from you. I've done, I think, five, maybe six part two episodes with different writers, and it's quite an eye opener every single time. So I can't wait for you to share your knowledge here. And
Well,
my
thank you.
absolutely. And my first question is, how do you know what to add or remove from the text?
Wow. It was for me, I tend to be a very terse writer to just sort of strip things down. And so the hard part for me is I'll say something that seems very obvious to me. The sky is blue.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to just end it there. But my editor or beta readers will come back and say, "Well, what do you mean? Is it always blue? Sometimes it's not blue. How can you tell the difference? And what should we do about it when it's not blue?" And so the topics that I was writing on, my first one was about being a foster parent and a step parent. And so when I, for example, when I said we're not the people who are supposed to be in the kids' lives, from the kids' perspective, they expect their biological families, this
Yeah.
primal sense that they belong with their biological family. Um, and it took some time for me to flesh that out, and I had to think through. So, what does that mean? How are we going to see it? What should we respond to? With my second book, which was protecting other people's children, it's about
Yeah.
child protection policies in youth organizations. That one actually came much easier because spent I spent 30 years explaining to youth organizations why you need this and what can happen if you don't. And for that, it actually was a little more cutting out and saying, no, this story is, I only need three stories about problems that can go wrong if you don't have this. I don't need five or six. So,
One other thing about your books and your work, which is absolutely beautiful, and I would like to ask you to highlight a little bit more about this. And I love what you said about how we have this primal instinct about our parents.
oh, yeah.
At what age, let's say a child is adopted as an infant, at what age, you as a professional, what would you recommend? At what age will be appropriate for the parents to have this ridiculously difficult conversation? Because it's a difficult conversation. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know. My adoptive kids came to me when they were older, so they always knew. With my friends who have adopted kids as infants, they usually just kind of explained things in little steps as kids were old enough. So, for example, when they started explaining to them about how babies were born,
Yeah.
they would say, you know, the babies grow in mommy's tummy. Although you know you grew in another mommy's tummy, and then you came to us, and so you give it to them in just little snippets, and so it becomes part of what they understand. And kids have a way of asking for things when they're ready to
Yeah.
deal with it. And so if you just sort of drop in little snippets and then answer their questions as you go along, then when they get older and are able to think in more difficult terms, that's when the conversations get really difficult.
Yeah.
But you have established an atmosphere of trust and answering their questions and emotional security before then.
I honestly don't know almost anything about this subject, but I assume that if they're older and you just put it down on the table, it's a bit of a shock, and that's why I
It's
wanted
very
to.
difficult. Yeah,
Yes,
it's usually much better for them to understand little pieces as they're able to understand it.
I have a few personal examples. I'm not going to give names because one of those is actually a quite famous, law issue here. But you're right. Children can sense it. Like one of those examples was in my personal family. I had an older brother and he was a horrible drug addict. He was hooked in
Uh,
heroin and everything. And I've always viewed, drugs, alcohol, sex, conflict even as a form of escapism, what people do
mhm,
when something is missing. And
mhm.
for this older brother that I had, I grew up, I saw the whole ugly picture. He was basically 27 when he found out from his mother that my father wasn't his father. That's
Uh,
why I saying that I had, not that he's dead, but we are biologically not connected. So
right.
it causes a lot of shock. I know about a beautiful, well, she's a woman now, she's no longer a girl, but she was a girl when I think she was 8, I was 12 when we first met. She was, yeah, I just know her from school, and I knew that she was adopted because I live in a small country, people know one another. So,
Right,
it's-
right, right.
yeah, I was specifically asked by my mother never to, read a word, and I haven't. And now I know this from third party. One day she went to her mother and she said, we should make a family tree for us. Like nobody makes a family tree. No,
Right, right.
why would you? I know my grandparents, I knew them, and I knew of my great grandfather because he was alive when I was a kid. I could care less about my family tree. It doesn't matter. But the fact that I love what you said because this feeling that what's inside you, it kind of generates that question.
Yes, yes,
And the
it
other
does.
issue is about a young man who's very troubled. There is a specific trouble, I don't want to mention it. And he went to a church here. Churches here are different.
Yeah.
And priests, one of the priests just picked up the phone, called his mom and said, I want to talk to his father. Said, well, we split, we're divorced, we no longer talk. Said, are you sure that you know what I'm talking about? Because I'm not sure that's this boy's biological father. She said, oh, well, how did you knew it? He's like, well, I mean, it's not that difficult when you're a professional. So yeah, children have, I can't even explain. I'm an Orthodox Christian, so my only explanation is God. That's how we're designed.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can give
It
you.
it's how we're wired,
Yeah.
and it's adoption is a wonderful thing, and I'm a huge fan of it. But it is different than the way most people come into families. So we just have to help kids navigate that difference.
Absolutely. My other question is, how do you know when the work is done? And what do you most, because both of your books, of the two books that you're talking about, they are a bit related.
Right.
What do you do when the first book was done? I'm not sure if that happened, but it could have happened. When it was done and you were like, hey, I should have put that one there. Ah,
Yes, yes. Oh, I have that all the time.
yeah.
For me, the book is done when time is up. When
Well,
my publisher has given me a deadline. When I hit that deadline, then that's when the book is done.
that's
That comes from my training as a lawyer. When when it's a deadline for me to submit my brief or my motion, that's the day I submit it, and whatever I have is when it's done. Now that's different than being finished. There's always, I should have put this, I should have put that in. How I have found that in my writing is I have a blog and I put the extra stuff in my blog. There's a whole section that I came up with, and I actually turned it into an ebook, and it's on my website. People can, it's the lead magnet I use. People
yeah.
sign up for the newsletter and get this free ebook. But it's talking about using fairy tales and how kids think in we're all of us think in terms of stories, And so kids think of their life in terms of, a hero's quest, and they're the hero. And there's only for those of us who are step parents or foster parents or not biological parents, um, their biological parents. There's only two places for us as what I call Plan B parents, and that is we can either be the mentor or we can be the villain in the story. And the biological parents will almost never be the villain. And so there's a space there for a villain that, all the fairy tales put step parents in there. But there are ways we can become the mentor. And so I have an ebook about, fleshing that out, how to be the mentor instead of the villain. And I did not think of that until after my first book was finished. But that's how I have done the extra is I put it in the next things that I write, or I put it on my blog.
That's pretty smart. That's pretty good. I love that answer. I, I don't really, you know, reading, traveling, and sports are one of the three things I really don't like. I don't like doing, but I'm doing it because it's good for me. And
Yeah.
I have this list of books that I'm rereading every 3 years. And it's different when because I know what it's all about, but when I'm reading it, like, wait, but I used to
Yes,
love that segment, or I used to hate that segment, but it makes a lot of sense.
right. And I see new things based on life experiences.
You know
Exactly.
about the Achilles paradox, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
when you're a kid and when you're an adult. Yeah,
Right,
it's
exactly.
like that. Um, you kind of already highlighted it with the blog, but how do you normally avoid repeating yourself? How do you normally avoid covering the same subject twice or more than two times? Because in all fairness, we write the way we speak, because that's how the
Hmm.
brain is wired, that's how we're
Hmm.
functioning. And sometimes it happens where you're using an editor or you just have developed some instinct over the time.
Well, I actually don't worry so much about repeating myself, and maybe it's because I've been working with lawyers and parenting teenagers for so long. People sometimes have to hear things 3 or 4 times before it sinks in, or with teenagers, 537 times before it sinks in. So I don't say the same thing the same way, but I will revisit things. And I have new insights, and I have something new to add. And what's the saying? There are only, I've forgotten, 27 plots in the world, and everything is a variation on one of those plots. I know I've got the number wrong, but it's that theme that there's only a certain number of plots, and everything is a different take on those basics. And so, working with youth organizations and child protection policies, there's a certain number of things that they need to look at. In our checklist audit, it's a finite number of things. I may add one or tweak things, but I come back to those topics in different ways. So in my blog and LinkedIn posts, for example, I'll run across a news story about a lawsuit or someone who's been charged with something or an incident that's making the news. And I'll say, and here is an example of 3 things that we always teach our clients. And I'll go back into those 3 things and point out how it might have changed things in this instance, or it might not, or they may have done the right thing and still got in trouble. And sometimes that happens. Um, so it's, I don't mind repeating myself on the basics, but I just make sure that I'm saying it a different way or drawing a different lesson.
Pretty much like highlighting what you already had, what you already mentioned.
Right. I tend to talk in here's the principle, here's how it plays out. And so when I write about something, I'll say, all right, here's a principle, here's a different way it played out. Here's how it played out in this situation. Here's how it may play out. Everybody's circumstance is different. Here's how it may play out in your life. But the principles are, they're always the same.
Pretty solid. Now, Next question is going to sound a bit odd. It's not an insult, but a lot of people now don't read. And I don't blame the people, I somehow blame the authors. The reason for that is because when I was a child, I don't know how it is now, I hope it's not the same, but during the summer, we were provided with a list of books that we were supposed to read.
Oh, yes.
And we weren't, that wasn't even part of an exam. Like you're supposed to build a house for someone else and you never get to go inside. Ridiculous. And I love the idea and the message of the Imperial Russian authors like Tolstoy and Solzhenitsyn before the revolution. Because afterwards, everyone who knew how to read or write were pretty much sent to a gulag. So there wasn't much of a literature afterwards. But before that, and the messages were pretty good. It was really, but good Lord, I don't know if you've read any of that. It was torture. It was pain. Debbie,
Yes.
an imperial sergeant, was tall, muscular, with a mustache, a white jacket, and a black trousers. That's it. I'm pretty sure you can picture him.
Right.
And Tolstoy needs like 12 to 15 pages to describe it. Like I get feel comfortable at some point, like reading just it's too much. So, in all fairness, maybe times have changed. Maybe it's a mixture of reasons, but people don't read that much now. What are your methods to capture the attention? Because I've always claimed that if you're putting a product out there, whether it's a book, an advertisement, or something like that, it's your responsibility to capture the imagination and the attention of the people. What methods do you use in that?
I give everything in short bursts.
Perfect.
Well, first of all, even for nonfiction books, which my two books are nonfiction, I still start with a story because, as I said, we are storytelling people. From the earliest days, we have told stories to make sense of our world. So I start with a short story, make it interesting, and then I go into principles, and I do a lot of headers. I do a lot of lists with 6 paragraphs, but instead of six paragraphs of words, I'll do a list of 6 things with numbers and short paragraphs. And so all along the way, as people are reading, they get a sense of completion. Of okay, I've read this story. Now I've read the first on this 6. Now I've read all 6 of these, and I try to write it so that they can stop it and then pick it up at any time and not lose too much information. And so it's interesting. A lot of the feedback I've gotten on my 2 books is that they're both easy reads, and I think that must be because I do it in short bursts. And that's I'm not on TikTok, but I understand the short TikTok
Yeah.
sense of it. So I try to keep my prose in the same short bursts.
I'm not on TikTok as well because I'm not an old man, but I'm way too old for this absurdity. I'm not gonna do that. That's ridiculous. Although it's not the right mindset, but I just
I
don't.
know.
I want to talk also about, and I'm sure it's also in the book, but what are the most, because there are just a lot of those, but what are the most noticeable challenges when you are into adoption?
Um, I think the biggest challenge is understanding that kids um, they have suffered a trauma, and a lot of times we see this all the time with the kids have a wonderful life, and um, they're happy and everything is good, and then they hit puberty, and even for biological kids, puberty is
Yeah.
tough. But all of the insecurities, everything seems to just kind of lurk and wait and then hit kids all at once at puberty. And it does it with every child. But we just see this over and over and over. The pattern is the kids just all of the attachment problems, all of the underlying trauma. There's a book called The Primal Wound that I think is an interesting phrase. It just all hits right then. Now you can have kids who have behavior problems earlier, but um, adolescence is just an incredibly tough time for everybody. So I think understanding where the kids are coming from. The second issue that I would say, and this is with all kids who suffer trauma, and that is our society, at least in the States, and I think probably in Europe too,
If it's
with the
there, it's
whole,
there.
yeah, with the whole looking at life through an intersectionality lens, and we encourage kids to lean into their victimhood. And as one of my kids told me one time, I need to count up victim points to get ahead. Um, and there's not much more high victim points than suffering from trauma. And our society encourages kids. The reason it bugs me so much is yes, we have to acknowledge what they've been through, but then they just stay there. And
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what the whole intersectionality thing thinks that a child is supposed to do other than just sit there and relish their victimhood and I don't know, wait for society to burn down and be rebuilt or something. But the hardest thing for I think for most of us in the field is to say to our kids, yes, I'm sorry you went through that, and you can move past it. You can be resilient. You can overcome. And there's not a lot of resilience built into our expectations for our kids these days.
Unfortunately, you're absolutely right. Not related to that kind of victimhood mentality, but related to another one. Again, I'm not gonna say anything specific because I don't see a reason to. But there was this young guy, younger than I am, 34. He was, I don't know, either 20 or 21, something like that. I didn't ask.
Right,
And you, I pretty much told him, listen, whatever you're going through it. Uh, Pretty much as part of life. And normally I don't talk about religion because people kind of think I'm some kind of a mad priest or something. It's
right,
just a stigma now, but I really wasn't even thinking. I said, listen, I mean, if God didn't believe you would be able to carry that cross, he wouldn't have given it to you. And he understood. Like I saw it in his eyes that he understood. I don't even
uh-huh,
know what happened to him, but you know, that specific glance, like, yeah, that makes sense. And I saw
right.
that in his eyes, and I thought, okay, so that one went well. But yeah, in one way or another, I believe that we have all been, all of us, every single one of us have been, in one way or another, a victim of something. Yes, some people experienced more horrific things than others. True. But it's part of life.
Right.
It's just part of life. It's how life is. You mentioned that puberty period, and I know I was a nasty child. Like I was as even before puberty. Like I changed 5 schools from first to 12th grade. Five. And I was not a nice kid. I wasn't horrible, but I definitely was. I wasn't one of those
Yeah.
bullies because I mostly bullied the teachers. So that was my primal focus. Again, something was missing, I guess. But what do you think is a good method to deal with this out of control teenager who's also suffering from that kind of trauma?
Well, there's a lot of different things to do, and one of them is to find the line of making them feel emotionally safe. But, help working with the attachment and saying, "Look, I love you, I care about you," um, and these are the rules and these are the consequences. You have to give them structure. You have to, and you can't fight every rule, but you have to have some big rules. Um, and you have to say, the curfew it's for your safety and your well-being, and we're not adjusting that. And here's the consequences. And kids will test the boundaries.
Yeah,
And you just have to be ready to come back with logical. I like logical consequences, consequences that grow out of whatever it is. And that's a whole nother long story. But um, and I think that those are kind of the main things that I say is the kids need to understand that you love them, that you care about them, but there are boundaries.
true. My grandma had a very smart move about it. It worked on my brother, it didn't work on me. So I don't know how that worked. Because I have an actual older brother that we share blood. Uh, but that method was effective on him. When he did something stupid, he was punished in the corner of the room, but she placed a bill on his forehead, and if he kept pressing it at the wall, he can keep the bill. And once the hour was done, he can get some snack and he can do it again. So if he was, I guess that's why he ended up working for the government, just sitting in the corner doing nothing all day and getting some
Doing
money.
that, right?
Yeah, this method worked for him. It didn't work. I was just like, I'm not gonna take the money, but what are you gonna do? But yeah, so maybe there are kids out there, and that method can actually work. You never know.
No, every kid has different currency, and
True.
you have to find their currency.
I want to ask you if I'm sure you have seen this, and I'm sure it's beautiful, but can you describe it when a foster parent did it right, and the kid is now an adult, he or she they're stable, have a nice job, and they're just going through life as they should be.
Well, yes, I've seen that. But I would say that, raising kids it's not like baking a cake where you put in three parts patience and two parts love and
Yeah.
let it sit for 3 years.
There's no
Um,
cooking.
kid, Kids have agency. They make their own decisions. And so um, the way I measure success is, if the foster parents hung in there and didn't give up. And all of us who've been in foster care for a long time, we have stories of kids who have rejected us, disappeared. Um, a lot of us have stories of the kids who come back. What you do in those situations is you just stay there. You say, you know where to find me whenever you come back, and they're able to rebuild the relationship. Then, I have other kids that I have kept in touch with, and we have a good relationship, and I'm the grandmother to their kids. And
Amazing.
um and even then I didn't do everything right, but I did enough right. And the other the other nice thing I ran across is something else that I put in my blog but not in my book is someone pointed out, kids need to learn how to deal with imperfect people, and they might as well start with their parents. And so parents don't have to be perfect. We just have to show kids how to build a relationship with people who are not perfect.
Absolutely. No, I had a professor of mine. I don't even remember if this was during my bachelor or master's degree studies, but he said that it's like civilization. When in the dawn of civilization, people believed like that God is this amazing, being and all-knowing and all-powerful. And children are like that. When you were little, you were 100% convinced that your mama was the most beautiful woman and that your
Yeah,
father, the strongest man alive, because this was your
right.
whole, you didn't know anything. And then when you became a teenager, you became nasty.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, they're ignorant and
yeah, and
stupid. And how
now,
did I land in this family of idiots?
yeah, and now humanity is like in the teenage years. So, I actually, yeah, I recommend that, Matt. Every teenager every now and then should have real good whooping. I've had almost a daily one. It works. And, humanity is heading that way direction. I even remember that one story. I don't know how you call it there, but here it's like parents meeting, like once every three
Yeah,
4 months. There's, and I knew that my mom won't be able to come from the parents meeting immediately because then she had to go to see a theater play and then she'll be out with friends. I'm like, whatever they say about me. I mean, I'm not gonna, she's not gonna beat me or anything. And when I was coming home from school, she was just getting out and she hit me in the face on the street. I was like, what was that for? Like, I have no idea what you did, but you did something. I'm sure. I
and
won't.
I'll find out tonight.
And I was like, you know what? That's fair. Yeah, okay.
Different currency for different kids.
Absolutely. And with that said, Debbie, huge thanks for being with me again for those amazing advices. I'm not sure if you've sent me last time, I'm not sure if you've sent me the link for your blog.
I
If you
will.
have, I will see it, but if you haven't, please do so.
Okay, certainly will. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
For
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.